my dad was big on fitness. He took care of himself. He had his routines, his workouts, and he just slumped and died.
So, with Wellness Waves Undiluted, I think a nice place to start would be to have Lika talk a little bit about lifestyle shift. She has taken out time to document some of her experiences and what she has shared in her writings. So, when we talk about lifestyle shift, for those of us that look to advance self-care, there's so many things that come to mind. So in her book, she takes some very interesting topics which relate to what we're doing here. So I'd like her to share a little bit about what the book has to say.
Thank you so much, Monica. Yes, I wrote a book called Lika's Lifestyle Shifts. The first edition of the book, I wrote it during COVID. And I think I started the book because of, I'd already been on the fitness journey for about 5 years plus. And I just felt that during COVID, everybody was stuck at home doing nothing. And I started getting a lot of people that were interested in my workouts and what I was doing for my skincare. So the first thing I did was to invite people to come on a live. And I got a lot of questions on fitness, on my workout routine, on lifestyle. What do I do? What do I eat? What do I do to keep my skin glowing? And because my before and after pictures showed a very clear change in my skin tone. So from that, putting everybody's information together, that's really where the book came from. I was like, okay, let me answer all these questions. And I came up with 4 F's. And that was fitness, food, fashion, and facials. Now, a lot of people ask me, why did you put fashion there? But that's where lifestyle comes. So the change in my outlook led to me changing also the way I dress, being confident in myself, which I think comes a lot from fashion as well. So, yeah, so that's really what the book is about. It just speaks about every aspect of fitness for me, every aspect of my lifestyle changed. Now, I decided to revise the book this year. And the major reason I did that was because of the loss of my dad. So I realized I started dealing with some mental health issues, trying to cope with his death, and all that made me just decide to work a bit more on the wellness.
Awesome. What you've described there, is quite interesting and really embraces the topic of self-care. And you bring out an interesting angle around mental health. Mental health is an area where there's a lot of stigma still rampant about it. We don't talk about it enough. We don't address it enough. And it's something that's very, very critical. It is a critical pillar when we talk about self-care. And so being able to address some of those issues, helping people to express themselves, and people listening to real life stories of how you share experiences also helps to encourage other people to manage some of these situations. So when we talk about mental health, it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be schizophrenia, it could be a bipolar disorder, and of course, the impact of substances and addiction and all that. So these are all topics that are very, very interesting, and we hope that talking about some of these topics through the Wellness Waves Undiluted will bring some of these things closer to people, and they'll be able to learn and share experiences and probably come out better for it.
So mental health has become a very important topic for me. I feel people are never comfortable to talk about it. A lot of people deal with so many things in silence, and we just use that word, I am fine, when we are not. We just keep a smile, that plastic smile. And I think those are all the topics or things that I would like us to discuss here. Um, because I'm dealing seriously with my mental challenges. It's been really difficult since I lost my dad. I think one of the major reasons is because of how he died. So my dad was big on fitness. He took care of himself. He had his routines, his workouts. He played golf at least 4 times a week. He ate very, very clean, and he just slumped and died. He was playing golf and he died on the golf course. And it was such a shocker because we all didn't see it coming. 3 days before he died, I spoke to him on the phone, and he was still telling me how much he's a strong man, how much he's in his 70s, and people see him and, they don't believe his age. And for him to just slump and die was a very big deal. It's, I think it just made me lose understanding of why I do all this that I do. For a while, it messed up my own understanding of what fitness is. So why do all this, if you can just slump and die, right? So I guess what I'm just trying to say is that I'm doing all this because I know a lot of people are hurting. I know a lot of people are dealing with their own personal struggles. They are dealing with mental issues, not just only even mental issues, losses. And they haven't been able to transfer that feeling anywhere. I'm using this platform with you to try to see that I'm not alone. I'm hoping that I'm not alone. I'm hoping that there are people who are struggling with different aspects of their lives, who have questions that are not answered, and just hoping that I can find some form of help through this whole process.
See, the way you express that, leaves it very, very open. And handling loss is different for different people. I know when I lost my dad, some years back, and for me, the way I was even told was even traumatic in itself. But everybody has a way to deal with it, or you try to find a way to deal with it. But we must almost always remember that we do what we do, but there's still that divine part that we don't have control over. And whatever your faith, whatever your belief system is, I think that also helps us manage some of these issues when you talk about loss. Loss itself, is a part of life that we all have to embrace. And it's something that we don't control. And in spite of the lack of control that we have over it, we all have to deal with it. And it's a reality that comes to different people at different times. And you still, no matter how old you feel your parent was, you lose somebody at 100, it's still a loss. You lose somebody at 70, it's still a loss. I lost my mom at 82,
Yeah,
it's
I
still a
remember.
loss, So that's part of life. But that really brings it close, because everybody deals with loss at some point in time. And within this climb, really, the way we handle some of these issues could be supportive, because we have this family support system network that is also very helpful. The extended family network, the community, those social support systems are part of what helps us through some of those issues. And as we learn to express ourselves more, because a lot of people internalize pain and loss without expression.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the mental health space, being able to express, feel comfortable enough to express is something that we all need to learn how to do a lot better. And even when you look within corporate structures, for example, and you look at the other side of mental health, even just the day-to-day stressors of life, because stress is real. Stress is there. We are all stressed we have different stresses and things. So how you even manage that also, has something to do with your mental health. A lot of times when we say mental health, do we really know what we're talking about? And there are little flags, there are little signs and symptoms that we could, use as pointers that something might not necessarily be right. The first big one is sleep. 7 to 8 hours of sleep is a critical thing we all need to embrace. And anytime we engage and we talk about sleep, how many hours of sleep do you really get? But sleep within the wellness space is an indicator. And even in psychiatry and psychology, sleep is very critical. If you're not getting enough sleep, that is the first red flag that something might be amiss. I said might be amiss. There are others. If you have a sudden change in mood, for example, we all have our dispositions, and somebody who was very go-lucky, very friendly, very warm, suddenly becomes very withdrawn, wants to isolate, doesn't want to relate or participate in things. These are flags that something might not be quite the way it needs to be. When our routines go off from what you normally do, I mean, everybody has their normal, everybody has their normal. And when you're in a setting, you tend to observe those normals. So behavior that falls outside of that normal for that individual, whatever it might be, could be a flag. People being extremely emotional, whether outbursts of tears or outbursts of rage and anger, could also be flags that you might need to look a little bit closer, because sometimes rage or crying is a way to express, but anger, explosive episodes of anger and rage could also be a flag. But we're in Lagos right now, and we see a lot of rage on the streets of Lagos. If you've been around, you see road rage, you see people probably being very extreme. But those are all flags that something, could be amiss. So that's just a little bit. Also, for example, if you have somebody that's usually very neat, very composed, the way they comport themselves, and suddenly you notice this person is not taking as much care of themselves as they used to, is coming out looking different, those could also be flags that you want, that maybe something is not quite where it needs to be. And some of those issues, push people into substance use.
Yep.
In an attempt to sometimes try to drown or address some issues. That's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, mental health could mean different things to different people. And when things start to go off, we have to be quite observant to be able to pick that this is not the norm with this particular individual. And like I said, everybody's norm is different, but there are indicators that we can pick up that probably something is not quite the way it should be.
If I might even add to that. So another aspect is even things that turn out physical. So like illnesses. So you have spoken about the aspects that, you can see the red flags or see the, flags that you're having these issues. Sometimes it can also be physical. So in my case, I'm talking about a couple of years back, I had real physical changes that at the time I thought I was fine. I just had my baby. I was happy. I was just married. And I didn't know that I was going through a mental struggle, right? And I would just have these spasms around my neck. I would just feel like shakes, like twitch. And it used to get really bad that my head pretty much is moving. And I was scared about it, like, what's going on? So we went to the hospital the first time. And what was even so strange, and that's what made me finally know that it's a physical, it's a mental thing, is because as soon as I start talking about it, so when the doctor will say, what's wrong with you? I'll say my head is twitching, I'm feeling a pain in my neck. And the next thing, it just starts to happen. It just starts to happen. So it was obvious, but at the time I didn't know. I just thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was drinking too much tea. So maybe it was because of the green tea, because I said drinking ginger tea. So I thought it was the ginger tea. I stopped the ginger tea, but it was still happening. I did several neurological checks. They did my brain scan. There was nothing wrong with me. And it was only eventually that they realized that I needed therapy. I needed to just go through, because a lot of changes had happened in my life. I just had a baby. I just moved to Lagos. I was just newly married. So it was just, okay, just there's too much happening. It's a sign of stress. Let's start this therapy, start this start speaking to somebody and see what is triggering this. Now, also be mindful of when it happens. So that helped me to start tracking when it happens. What time of the day does it happen? And at the end of the day, we just realized it was panic attacks. And as I became conscious of it, it helped me to be able to manage it. And I didn't need to take medication for a long period of time, because I had to take medication for like the first 3 months, taking medication when those panic attacks happened. And after a while, I just realized I could stop taking them and I was fine. So I think my message in here is that panic attacks, stress, they could come in different forms. There are things that even affect your daily lives and you don't even know is stress. You don't even know how bad it's affecting you. There are some people that I know that what happens to them when they are stressed is that they start to break out. You know, that is a sign. That's your body letting you know that there's something wrong. So knowing about these signs, knowing about what is triggering it, is the first way to heal. So we talk about all these things, you know, handling it, going through it. I think at this point, I would like to say what I have been doing personally to deal. So I never really liked taking walks. I'm more of a gym rat. Go to the gym, physical strength workouts, and even also workouts that so like sports. I started golfing. Very ironic. My dad died playing golf, but that was a trigger for me to start playing. And I'm enjoying playing golf. I feel closer to him than now that I'm playing. So I'm glad that I have that. Now I have friends who have been or who are in similar situations than like me, and they are struggling with finding balance. Like, what next? Like, I don't know what to do. I'm just in that limbo. And they are really happy that I was able to find that, because truly it's helping a lot. Playing golf is almost like my therapy. So my first advice for people who are in similar situations, people who are going through loss, and people who find it difficult to talk to someone else. So first thing I would say, consider therapy. Consider, a psychologist, talking to somebody. If that is something that you're afraid of, you can try writing down your thoughts. Someone told me once that I should just start writing to my dad, like a journal, just writing to him. I used to still send WhatsApp messages to his phone. Sometimes I do that just to help me, like therapy. Of course, as I said, I've started playing golf. That helps a lot. Then something I started doing as well, and I think this is something everybody can adopt. I started taking walks. long walks. I would just come out of the house and I will walk. And it was so helpful, way more helpful than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. What I also started doing was listening to motivational speakers. So you can listen to us. I would just put on my headsets and I would just listen. As I just take that walk, I'm just listening to someone speak. Sometimes I'm listening to music, any kind of music you like. And it was extremely helpful within the first month. If you haven't tried it, honestly, I will tell you to try that. Try it out. And please send me a message. I want to hear from people who are going through something similar and how they are managing it. I even want you to tell me how you're managing it so I can try something out.